Hello, my name is Shelby. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be giving you guys the books that I read in September. For the first month of school, I feel like I had a pretty successful reading month. I read 7 books total. Some of them were for school, some of them were for me and just enjoyment. So I'm going to give you guys some stats and then we're just going to get right into my reviews of these books. As I said before, I read 7 books total this month. 5 of them were for me and 2 of them were for school. I'm not going to go over the ones I read for school in much detail just because you may not be interested in those as much, but I do have reviews for both of those on my Goodreads and I will link those down below if you would like to check them out. 3 of the books that I read this month were fantasy, 1 was sci-fi, and 1 was a self-help book of a sort. Of the 7 books I read, 3 of them had an animal in the title, and 2 of those books, animal, were a type of bird. I don't know why I feel like that's a necessary statistic, but there you have it. I gave 2 books this month 5 stars, 2 books this month 4.5 stars, 1 book 3 stars, and 2 books 2 stars. So that is it with the statistics. I'm gonna quickly just say the books I read for school, so if you want to check those out, and then I'll get into the books I read for fun for this channel. So the books that I read for school were both by a playwright named Tom Stoppard. He writes plays that really get you to think about time and love and politics and meaning, and they're very deep and they're very intricate, and we had some wonderful discussions on them in class, and those books were Jumpers and Travesties. I gave Travesties 3 stars and I gave Jumpers 2 stars. I didn't like Jumpers as much and I go over that more in my review, so please go check that out. And now on to the books that you guys want to hear my reviews for. So we are going to start right now. The first book I would like to give you guys a quick review on is Aurora Rising by J. Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. I did do a whole book talk on this one. If you would like to see it, I will link that in the little card above and I will have it down below, and please feel free to check it out. But overall, I just want to say that this was masterfully written. I wasn't a big sci-fi person until I read Illumini by J. Kristoff and Amy Kaufman, and when I saw this, I knew I had to try it, and I'm so happy I did. I think the characters were so interesting. I loved seeing their personalities, and I loved reading this book and really just getting into all of their minds. The group dynamic was wonderful. I loved the combination of regular classical writing and then the signature J. Kristoff and Amy Kaufman graphics on the page. As you can see, I took a lot of annotation notes in this book. I have a much more in-depth summary in my book talk, so be sure to check that out. But yes, 5 stars to Aurora Rising by Amy and Jay. The next book I want to talk about is my other 5-star read. The next book I would like to discuss with you guys is An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. For those of you who do not know, Margaret Rogerson also wrote Sorcery of Thorns, which I absolutely adored. That came out after this book, but I read this one second, and I wasn't happy with it. I gave this book 2 stars. I thought it was so quick. I think if it had just like honestly 100 more pages, this is such a small book, it would have been more drawn out, more interesting, but it just happened that there were things that weren't explained very well, and I really just got lost in the plot. I felt like the beginning was really promising, but then everything just starts to speed up and you don't really get to see these characters develop. You just see them fixed already, and it was really disappointing because the description of the book made me really excited to read it. It is about a girl who is a painter whose specialty is painting fae, and she gets to paint this fae prince, and when he sees that she has drawn human emotion in his eyes, she is taken by him to the fae courts to stand trial. And that was like such an interesting premise, and I was really disappointed that I didn't like this book as much as I thought it would, so I gave it 2 stars. The next book that I read this month was a buddy read with Sadie over at Sadie Joyful. We had such a fun time reading this book. I loved hearing her thoughts, and that book is The Wicked Fox by Kat Cho. We got it in the Fairy Loot box, and for I believe it was, I want to say July's Fairy Loot book of the month. So I really enjoyed this book. Before this book, I had no knowledge of Korean mythology. It wasn't something I had ever really delved into. I never really got into K-dramas or any of that stuff, but I absolutely adored this book. I loved hearing about Gumiyoung, who is a Gumiho, which is a 9-tailed fox. They feed off the energies of men. and it was just so interesting, and I definitely want to read more books about this subject matter or in this genre because it was just so magical and wonderful. I loved her as a character. I loved watching her grow and develop as she learned to let people in and to care about people, especially Ji-hoon, who is a boy at her school, who basically forces her to open up her heart. And it's just such a wonderful story, and every single twist and turn was just so masterfully done. And for those of you like me who are noobs and simply don't know anything about Gumiho, they have, like, Hacho has little inserts, almost like little breaks from the chapter to tell you about the mythology of the Gumiho and sort of how they came to be and different stories about them that really add to the magic of the plot. So I highly recommend this book. Apparently there have been some mixed reviews. I loved it. I gave it 4.5 stars. So my only small thing is that the chapters were a little weirdly broken up. There are some times when I feel like you could have just kept it in one chapter, but they're broken up into 3 small chapters, and I don't know, it was the format that was weird to me. But other than that, it was a wonderful story and I adored it, and I loved reading it with Sadie. And yes, I don't know why my lighting is so weird today. You guys, it's been a long week. The next book that I read this month, I actually got a arc of it from NetGalley. If you don't know, NetGalley is a wonderful platform where reviewers and bloggers and teachers and educators and librarians can get access to books before they come out and review them and sort of help add to the hype of those books. It's a really wonderful platform. I've been a member for a few years now, and I love receiving those books. I've read some truly amazing books before they've been out, and I've loved every second of it, so I definitely recommend you go check out that website. But the book that I got from that platform was The Little Book of Big Feelings by Maureen Marzi Wilson. The reason that I was attracted to request this book was because Marzi owns this amazing Instagram account called Introvert Doodles that sort of shows her life as an introvert, interactions that she's had, or just things that she's feeling. And these doodles always give me so much joy to look at, and I relate to literally every single one of them. So when I saw that she was compiling a book about feelings and emotion, I definitely had to check it out. It's completely made up of her doodles and her little tidbits about life, and I thought it was so well done. I loved it. I loved that each chapter focused on a specific emotion and just sort of walked through scenarios and feelings, and it was just such a warm and fuzzy thing. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. I highly recommend it to anyone who's an introvert or not an introvert like me, but I just so enjoyed reading her doodles. They are so calming to look at, and I definitely recommend you follow her on Instagram because it is just so wonderfully done. And I love her so much, and I was so grateful to read this book before it came out. The last book that I read in the month of September was The Merciful Crow by Margaret Owen, and this was in the August Fairy Loot box. I actually have the September one. It's right there. It's looking at me, waiting for me to unbox it, but it's fine. I was not expecting to like this book as much as I did. I read the description and I was like, it seems like an okay thing, but honestly, I fell in love with this book. Basically, it takes place in this mythical kingdom called Sabor, where all the people are broken up into caste. The highest caste are the phoenix, and then they're broken down into the peacocks, the swans, the doves, the hawks, the crane, the owl, the vultures, the gull, pigeons, sparrows, and then at the very bottom of the heap are the crows. And each caste of bird has a specific ability that they can do. So phoenixes can control fire, doves are artistry, owls are memory, and so they're pretty much related to the bird that they're based on. But crows were gifted with nothing, and therefore they are in the dregs of society. And basically a crow's job is to, when the plague comes, their job is to kill the sinners who contracted the plague, thereby calling them the merciful crows, because they put these people out of their misery. And since they have no birthright of their own, they can steal other people's magic from their teeth, which sort of reminded me of Daughter of Smoke and Bone, but this could not be more different. We follow a girl named Fi, whose father is the chief of her little crow band, and they are just trying to make their way through the world until they discover that some of the people they were being sent to kill the crown prince and his bodyguard actually faked their deaths so that they can defeat the evil queen of the land. I just adored this book. It was so magical and fantastical and just transports you into Sabor. There's such wonderful world building and descriptive language. I thought that Fi was just such a fun character. She was so sassy. It was such a funny book, which you really would not expect by looking at the cover, which is also like gorgeous. And every single part just like made my heart beat, and I loved the prince's bodyguard, Tavin, and I believe that the author said that he was asexual, and that is just so well represented in this book. I thought it was so interesting just seeing like different sexual orientation representation in this fantasy book, and it was just so masterfully and beautifully done, and I highly recommend it, and I gave this book 4.5 stars. And I cannot wait for the next book. I don't know when it's coming out because this only came out in August, so I'm gonna have to wait a while, but it's fine. I'll deal with it. And those were the books that I read in September. I only had 4 that I wanted to read. I'm really happy I got to more because it just feels good to like know you've accomplished reading these books, and it just gives me such a warm feeling inside. It's going to be a lot more books in October because I'm not doing 1 but 2 readathons in October, so I'm not going to be doing a TBR for that because it's too much. I am so excited for them, and I am so happy and proud of the books that I read this month. I really enjoyed most of them, and that is really all I have for you guys today. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment, and I will see you guys in my next video. You guys are the absolute best. Love you all. Bye!